Were you concerned that you were releasing a person who was under the influence?
No, sir.
You recall if you did 3 checks for each eye?
I believe I did, but I do not recall.
I don't want you to believe him blindly. Officer said all over the road. Go with the video.
The nystagmus test was not conducted in the manner the training manuals described to do said test. True or false?
True.
Were you concerned that you were releasing a person who was under the influence of alcohol? No, sir. The officer who had just walked Derek Corona out the back door of a small California police department, keys in hand, was now on the witness stand admitting he'd already decided the man was drunk. 2 hours earlier, he had let him drive home. Now a defense attorney was circling back to that decision, question by question, and the officer had no answer that didn't damage his own case. The jury leaned forward. The case had just cracked open. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how one skip testing step can unravel an entire DUI prosecution. On August 23, 2025, in Winters, California, Officer Nicholas Morgan of the Winters Police Department stopped Derek Corona and charged him under California Vehicle Code Section 23152 with misdemeanor driving under the influence and driving with a blood alcohol content of 0.08% or above.
Earlier, the defendant has denied the charges and he is presumed innocent. The people of the state of California versus Derek Corona. Count 2. On or about August 23rd, 2025, Derek Corona did commit a misdemeanor, driving at 0.08 or above. Now, this was nearly an hour after driving, and the chemical breath test showed at that point, Mr. Corona's blood alcohol content was still at a 0.07, 1/100% beneath the 0.08. And second, how the science applied to that BAC nearly an hour after driving shows us that his BAC at the time of driving was at or above a 0.08. And when you have, I'm confident that you will see the correct verdict under the facts, and the law will be that of guilty on both counts. Thank you.
The case went to trial in Yolo County, with the prosecutor identified in the record as Mr. Ribbit and an unnamed defense attorney representing Corona. A breath test taken nearly an hour after the stop measured his BAC at 0.07, 0.01% under the legal limit. The state's theory relied on retrograde extrapolation that his BAC at the actual moment of driving would have been at or above 0.08. Derek Corona was an ordinary driver coming home from a friend's house down the street when he was pulled over.
Officer Morgan had been with the Winters Police Department about a month or so when this stop was made. Officer Morgan claimed in his report, and the great thing about this for us is this entire event, for the most part, is captured on car camera and body camera. He nails that test. 9 steps out and 9 steps back. He does so well, the cover officer even mentions on the audio how good he did on the walk and turn test. And Derek does the test all the way to 1,023, and the officer says, okay, put your foot down. Nails it. And the breath test comes back 0.07. 0.07. You know what they do then? They give this young man his keys back to his car. They take him in to the area where the patrol car drove him in 30 minutes before. They open up the garage door and they say, see you later. Go on back to your car and go again. And Mr. Ribbit's office charges Derek Corona with driving under the influence and driving at a 0.08 or above. Even though he blew a 0.07. I'm a person where words matter, okay? And I'm going to hold the officers to this when they testify. And you might say, what's the big deal? It's still a 0.07. Who cares if it's Gordon Brown as the operator Or Officer Morgan is the applicant? No. Details matter. Details matter. Has nothing to do with the accuracy of the test. But details matter. Ask yourself, if an officer believes a suspect is under the
I'm going to
influence,
sustain at that, but that is, it's a permissible, but not at the point. It's an argument.
we'll ask Officer.
What followed was nearly 2 hours inside a patrol car and a police report writing room, handcuffed, field tested, breath tested, and eventually released with his own keys back in his hand.
Derek Corona was under the influence of alcohol.
Yes, sir.
Were you concerned that you were releasing a person from the police department who was under the influence of alcohol?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because he seemed to be able to be safely released, I determined he just wasn't safely able to drive. So I felt comfortable releasing him from the police department at that time.
Were you concerned how this person who you think is under the influence for driving is going to get home and it's dark outside?
No, sir, because he also indicated he had a friend that lived down the street in Winters that he was coming from.
And you'd given Derek his car keys,
Yes, sir.
but you believed he wasn't going to drive.
Yes, sir.
What made you believe that?
Based on the admonishment that I gave him to get a sober ride home or go to his friend's house, and he stated, okay. So I believed him and took him at his word.
I'm assuming in your 8 years as a police officer, you have had suspects lie to you.
Yes, sir.
You did not believe Derek was lying to you.
No, I did not.
0.
For months afterward, he carried 2 misdemeanor charges, the burden of retaining a defense attorney, and the public label of DUI defendant before a single juror ever heard the evidence. That is the weight most people never see behind the word acquitted. The state's case looked disciplined on paper. Sergeant Manuel Cardoza, the department's instrument calibration officer, testified the breath machine was working normally and its 0.07 reading was accurate.
Manuel Cardoza, Cardoza. Mr. Ribbit.
Good afternoon, officer.
Afternoon.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a sergeant with the Winters Police Department.
And how long have you been with the Winters Police Department?
5 years.
Now, based on these two results and your experience as a coordinator calibrating these instruments, do you have any opinion as to the accuracy of this instrument on August 23rd, 2025?
It appeared to be operating normally.
And would the results based on these calibration records be accurate and trustworthy?
Yes.
So the 0.07 result for breath 1 at 4:27 a.m. You believe that's an accurate reading, correct?
Correct.
Any reason to believe that is a 0.08 or higher result?
No.
A state criminalist, Kimberly Sand, then walked the jury through the extrapolation math, testifying that using an elimination rate of 0.025% per hour, Corona's BC at the time of driving could have ranged from roughly 0.79 to 0.092. Officer Morgan told the jury Corona was all over the road, drifting between the center line and the shoulder before the stop.
Officer, please state your name and spell your name.
Nicholas Morgan, NICHOLASMORGAN.
Mr. Ribbit.
What do you do for a living?
I am a police officer for the City of Winters Police Department.
Now, across agencies, how long have you been a police officer?
Approximately 8 years.
How long have you been with Winters Police Department?
As of today's date, approximately a year.
Now, did you immediately upon pulling out stop that vehicle?
No, sir.
Why not?
I observed the vehicle was having trouble maintaining its lanes, and I determined to follow it for a little longer to obtain a driving pattern for a possible DUI investigation.
Now, was your vehicle at the time equipped with a car camera?
Yes, sir.
When do those car cameras activate?
They activate 30 seconds prior to me putting on my emergency lights, unless it's manually activated.
Had you been following him for an amount of time?
Yes, sir.
Approximately how long, do you think?
Approximately a minute, and it wasn't very long before this.
So now I wanted to talk about a few things. First, Where he stopped, is that termed a shoulder road?
Yes, sir.
Were there similar shoulders before that point as you followed him?
Yes, sir.
Did he ever signal that he was going to stop?
No, sir.
And you said you trusted him. At that point, did you think he was safe to drive?
No.
No further questions.
On its face, it read like a textbook DUI case. What almost nobody watching caught, Morgan's own report had him following Corona for a full minute before pulling him over across a stretch of road his dash cam showed was barely a tenth of a mile long.
That quote, I observed the driver was unable to maintain their lane and was bouncing between the double yellow center line and the fog line or shoulder line. Do you recall writing that in your report?
Yes, sir.
Did any of your video capture a vehicle bouncing between the double yellow center line and the fog line or shoulder line?
Just where I pointed out right before the break, sir.
Would you agree that your report reads as if you've observed this bouncing, which is the reason you're going to stop the car?
It could be interpreted that way, yes, sir.
But would you agree that the point where you say he's bouncing is when the lights are already on, aren't they? Your three lights are already on, correct?
Correct, sir. I did also observe him bounce one prior time before that.
Do you recall putting a distance in your police report?
Yes, sir.
And what was that distance?
That distance was the time I activated my lights to the time of Mr. Corona pulling over.
And that distance was how far?
The math didn't hold up, and it would matter far more than anyone in the room yet realized. This is where the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's standardized field sobriety protocol becomes central. The horizontal gaze nystagmus test, checking each eye for involuntary jerking as it tracks a moving object, is only valid when performed exactly as trained. 3 full passes per eye, timed correctly, checking for specific numbered clues. Officers don't get to eyeball it. If the test isn't run by the book, the science behind it no longer applies. It's just an officer's impression dressed up as data. Whether this test was actually done the way the manual requires is exactly what cross-examination was about to answer. Under cross, Morgan couldn't say how long he'd actually followed Corona, guessing a minute, over a stretch his own report placed at under 30 seconds.
How come you can't do both? How come you can't activate your car camera manually and catch up and try to do a bumper pace?
You could.
So why didn't you do that in this case?
I don't know, sir. I just did not.
Okay. Not from the camera perspective, but from your own 2 eyes, can you tell whether that Derek's car is within the lane, outside the lane, up on the roundabout, anything like that?
I do not recall.
You don't recall if you saw him in or out of the lanes around the roundabout?
Correct.
Okay. Would you say your live eye view was better than your car camera view?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm not going to pause it. You tell me to pause when you first see the lane, the failure to maintain a lane.
Yes, sir. Right there, sir.
So you say that at this point, Derek is failing to maintain the lane.
Yes, sir.
How so?
May I use the laser pointer?
Please.
I observe him drive closer to this fog line, and then as we continue, he shifts more towards the center line. And to me, that is the failure to maintain lanes in this video.
At any point after you say that one spot was where Derek did not maintain his lane, did you ever see his vehicle drift within the lane or violate the lane again?
No, sir.
Do I have to put my blinker on to go to the right shoulder to stop?
No, sir.
But Derek Corona did, didn't he?
At this point in the video, yes, sir, he did.
How far away was your parked patrol car from Derek's vehicle when you first claimed to observe some type of suspected moving violation?
Less than 50 feet. Sorry.
If I told you it was about 550 feet or a tenth of a mile, would that sound accurate to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And just so I'm clear, words matter. I went to law school because they said there was no math, so bear with me on this math, okay? If it's a tenth of a mile from the parking lot where you are parked, when you first see Derek's car go by, and this video starts 30 seconds before you've lit up Derek's car, when you've been following Derek for about a minute, how are you following Derek's car for about a minute if you've gone not even a tenth of a mile?
It was my best educated guess, sir. I don't have a correct, more answer for you.
I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy. You said you pulled out of the parking lot and you followed Derek's car for approximately a minute before we capture this view, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would agree there's no way you followed that car for a minute, is there? We're talking a tenth of a mile. You're in a patrol car. It's not been a minute. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
How long has it been?
20, 30 seconds.
Okay. Even that sounds a little high to go from a parking lot to a tenth of a mile away, but we'll give you.
He couldn't recall whether he'd completed the mandatory 15-minute pre-test observation period. Video showed both him and his cover officer stepping out of the room, unable to watch Corona at all.
Just at Winter Speedy?
Just at Winter Speedy.
1.
Derek's?
Yes, sir.
Out of all of the cases you've done, since it's the only DUI arrest, is this case easily referable in your memory as to what went down?
For the most part, yes, sir.
There were times where you were completely out of the room.
That's accurate, yes, sir.
There were times when Officer Brown was completely out of the room.
Yes, sir.
How were you continuously observing Derek if you are not even in the same room with him?
The window behind Mr. Corona is a window into our report writing room, and in a portion of the video, you can see Officer Brown standing there observing him, and my camera was also on him the entire time.
Okay, but again, words matter. Your camera's on him. Does your camera have some kind of AI feature that if the camera thinks he's burped, that it's going to alert you?
No, sir.
How are you monitoring that if you're not even in the same room with him? You're not, are you?
No, sir.
We'll probably get to it after lunch. But there's even a portion where Derek puts his hand up to his mouth. Did you see that this morning?
Yes, sir.
Did you think that's somebody being polite who's burping?
No, sir. I didn't think it at the time, but it could be, yes, sir.
Is that the first time you saw that this morning on the video?
The first time that I've paid attention to it, yes, sir.
Okay. So you would agree that the 15-minute continuous observation period of Derek was not done in this case, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
How long?
The entire video is approximately an hour and 44 minutes.
So you want to just have them sit and watch it for an hour and 44 minutes?
Studies show that everybody is clinically impaired at 0.07. We have a .08 that was set using standards way back. The appearance can...
Isn't that for the jury? Okay, here's what I really on this portion. The video can come in. That is the video without the audio because it shows where he left. Whether it's a material difference as to what the officer described or not, that's for the jury to decide. But is it undercutting his opinion? Perhaps, but it's also sort of 352, and it's ultimately up to the jury to decide what the evidence showed.
Do you have an explanation for why it wasn't complied with in this case?
No, sir.
Then came the count that mattered most. NHTSA protocol requires 3 passes per eye for a valid nystagmus reading. Asked directly, Morgan admitted he'd completed only 2 passes on Corona's right eye and 1 on his left. Pressed on whether his report, which claimed distinct nystagmus in both eyes, was accurate, Morgan gave the answer that decided the case. I could agree with that. He had testified to a clinical finding his own testing never actually produced.
Long a thorough horizontal gaze nystagmus test is supposed to take?
I don't recall.
Do you know it's supposed to be 90 seconds?
I don't recall that. No, sir.
Do you recall how many separate times for each eye you are supposed to do the horizontal gaze nystagmus test?
2 times, sir. 2 per eye.
You did not do 3 to the left and 3 to the right on Derek Corona, did you?
I don't recall.
In the video where you're shown conducting the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, you recall if you did 3 checks for each eye?
I believe I did, but I do not recall.
You would agree, would you not, that following the proper procedure is imperative for a proper result?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I would. I'm going to do it several times. I'll let you know when we're done, okay?
Yes, sir. Let me stop this right there. You've done it twice to Derek's right eye and looks like a 3rd time to his left eye, correct?
That is accurate, yes.
Did you notice whether Derek had vertical gaze nystagmus?
I observed it was present in his eyes, yes, sir.
How do you explain that based upon your training and experience looking back when you know that his blood alcohol level was 0.07?
I can't explain it.
Could it be you were wrong about him having vertical gaze nystagmus?
Could possibly, but I observed it.
Do you remember why you didn't give a number?
Because I hadn't completed my field sobriety tests, and I don't rely on one test, and I don't speculate.
That's not a minor paperwork slip. It's the collapse of the one test the state's own expert called the most significant marker of impairment in the case. A properly trained officer completes all 3 passes per eye before ever writing distinct nystagmus into a report. That's the manual's floor, not an option. A prosecutor preparing this case should have checked the body cam against the report before Morgan ever took the stand, catching the gap in preparation instead of letting a jury catch it live. A properly prepared witness says, "I don't recall," instead of asserting a finding he never tested for. Corona spent months facing 2 charges over a report that didn't survive 15 minutes of careful questioning, and there is no mechanism that automatically reviews an officer's testimony for accuracy once a case ends. That burden falls almost entirely on defense attorneys willing to do the work in the moment. The defense's entire strategy targeted one legal requirement: proof beyond a reasonable doubt of impairment, not a number simply close to the legal threshold. Retrograde extrapolation gives a range, not a certainty, and the state's own math put Corona's estimated BACE as low as 0.79, under the legal limit even in the state's best case scenario. Most people assume a breath test result settles a DUI case by itself. It doesn't.
This is a portion of your report, correct?
Correct.
So why then did you use the term Derek refused to do the preliminary alcohol screen device test? Again, words matter. Why did you use the term he refused? He can decline that request, correct?
That is correct.
And he declined that request, correct?
That is correct.
Completely within his rights to do so.
Yes, sir.
So why then did you use the term to this jury, he refused the test?
Because that's how it's written in my report, is that he refused to provide the sample.
Would you agree in a driving under the influence case that a person refusing a test has some negative connotation to it?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't quite understand what you're getting at.
Derek didn't refuse to take a test, did he?
No, he declined to take the preliminary alcohol screening test.
So why wouldn't you just use that term?
I don't know. You're right. I should have.
You were going to take him in for the full-blown alcohol test, regardless of what the preliminary screen test revealed, correct?
That number only becomes proof of guilt once it's paired with reliable field testing and a credible timeline, and this cross-examination took both apart piece by piece. In closing, the prosecution argued the totality of the evidence, the driving pattern, the physical tests, the extrapolated range, added up to guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, regardless of any single imperfect step.
Now, Mr. Gorman said he lied, he lied, he lied. He must have said the word lie and lies 15 times. But repeating something does not make it true. You see mistakes, you see exaggeration, and you see semantics. Yes, it was 5 times, not 6. That is a mistake. I don't want you to believe him blindly, and I don't want you to say, well, 5, not 6. I didn't hear that testimony. Why is that important? It's because he only failed to do the last pass. This is the observation period. Now, per Ms. Sam's testimony, there should have been someone watching him for the 15 minutes. Not going to tell you otherwise. That's true. And there wasn't. They left the room. He didn't watch him for 15 minutes. You can't. I encourage you to. It was all on camera. And it said that all situations in life open to some possible or imaginary doubt. And I posit that is imaginary doubt. You know, you've heard a lot today, or this during trial, that words matter, but sometimes they don't. Let's be honest. And so when he starts focusing on, did you say refused or declined? Sure, they mean the same thing, but officer says all over the road. You can, and maybe most people would, say, that's not what we see. First, okay, you saw the video. Go with the video. Go with the evidence of your eyes and ears. And also, I'm not saying he was all over the road. I'm saying he could not pay attention to an object that was flashing and running inside him. And she told you told Mr. Foreman when he put all the facts into the hypothetical. When you put the multiple 0.07 test and the violation, she considered it, and she said, no, it does not change my opinion. And that information is the defendant's own words saying that he stopped drinking 2 hours and 40 minutes before. So it's not going up, it's going down. And when you rewind the clock, it goes up the further back you go. Your job is not to reward or punish Officer 1. After you consider that evidence and carefully apply the law, I will ask that you return the only verdict that is supported by the evidence, and that is guilty on both counts.
The defense countered that an officer who released a man he swears was too impaired to drive handed him his own keys, and only built the case for impairment afterward on a flawed test hadn't proven anything beyond doubt at all. Both arguments had real weight.
Mr. Orban, you're up. He basically said, I put information in my report that didn't happen. I said I saw nystagmus in both eyes and I didn't see nystagmus in both eyes. I observed Derek Corona for 15 minutes. No, he didn't. You do not reward a man that doesn't deserve your trust. And the teacher says, right there, he moved right there. That was it. Did you all see it? Nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw horizontal gaze nystagmus. And even though the officer said, hey, because you're a .07 and you seem like a nice guy, I'm going to let you go out the back or out the garage of the police department. Here's your keys back. Don't drive. But if the prosecution's case was an airplane, you would not put your family on it to fly over water. I don't want you to think Officer Morgan's going to get fired. I don't want you to think Officer Morgan is going to get in trouble. I am going to tell you, you should not reward that police work. Officer Morgan even said to us, when he was being questioned by the prosecutor, Derek Corona did not do anything to signal he was pulling over for my patrol car. And on the video, before Derek stops, his right blinker comes on, his brake lights light up, and he pulls to the right. That tells me that officer didn't even look at that portion of the camera before he came here and testified. We can't allow an officer to be rewarded for the work that he did in this case. He lied. He lied, he lied, he lied, and we know he lied. I don't know why he lied, but he lied. He was not under the influence. And the officers even believed it because he kicked him loose. He kicked him loose. That's problematic for their case, right? It doesn't mean he's a bad cop per se. It just means he did a really bad job on this case. Mr. Ribbett said that the only person on trial here is Derek Corona. It's not exactly true. Derek's the only person facing criminal charges in this case. But you get to judge every witness the prosecution and I called.
What neither attorney could resolve for the jury: if the officer running this investigation believed Corona was safe to release that night, how much should his after? The facts certainly really count. The jury returned its verdict not guilty on both counts.
Not guilty, dated 8/20/2026, signed by the foreperson. Mrs. Foreperson, is the verdict as read the verdict of the entire jury? Yes.
Is there any request to poll? No, Your Honor. Very good. Any reason why the jurors cannot now be discharged?
None.
No, Your Honor. Good. I want to thank you for your jury service. It's obviously very important.
That result rests on the same constitutional floor set in Winship, the 1970 Supreme Court decision holding that no one can be convicted of a crime without proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the highest standard in American law. It exists for cases exactly like this one, where the evidence looks strong until it's tested and turns out to have real gaps. A jury doesn't have to find bad faith or disbelieve every officer to acquit. It only has to find that reasonable doubt survives. Here, an admittedly incomplete nystagmus test and a bay fee range dipping below the legal limit were enough. A traffic stop, a checklist, and one skipped step can be the entire difference between a conviction and a return to your own life. Every driver on the road is one imperfect test away from being the one on trial. The system worked here, but only because someone asked the right questions before it was too late. Next time, we're looking at a case where nobody asked those questions, where an officer's report went unchallenged, and a jury never saw what this one saw. That's the case that should worry you more. Was Officer Morgan's flawed nystagmus testimony an honest mistake made under pressure during only his second DUI investigation, or is it evidence that field sobriety training and courtroom accountability for officers are too thin to catch these errors before a jury hears them? And if it's the latter, what should actually change